the corner of your eye, huddled in the darkest shadows of imagination, it waits. Now is the time to face the fear. Welcome to Horror Lasagna. Embrace the trepidation.
Well said.
Yep.
Okay, so this is season 2, episode 6. So we're moving right along. Krampus.
Yes, Krampus. By all intents and purposes, this is actually a big budget U.S. film.
Right.
It was distributed by Universal. It came out in 2015. It had a $15 million budget, and you're going to recognize tons of people in the cast. So
Yeah, the one guy with the horns, he seems so familiar.
Yes.
No, I've seen him in something else.
This is a horror comedy. It's also a dark fairy tale with clear opening, closing, and obvious good and evil elements.
Yes.
Not unlike Mama.
Yeah, and the comedy part is very dark, kind of mortuary humor. It's
Yes.
not laugh out loud at the funny jokes humor, except for the ant.
This is not Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
Right.
This is a little darker.
Right. And it's the good Krampus movie, because we both commented that we've seen, especially the ones from the library, that they're just horrible. I mean,
there's so many out there.
Yeah. It's funny, too, because in today's world, with the tech and the tools, you can't say it's a bad movie because you didn't have the right equipment.
Right.
It's okay. You have a bad movie because it's a bad story and you're a bad movie teller, videographer, whatever, which everybody has to start somewhere. I get that. But
no, come at us, bad Krampus movie guys.
that should be our season bonus. All the bad Krampus movies in one go.
Yeah, no, I couldn't do that.
No, I had to stop a few of them too. I've seen.
Yeah.
This is just too bad.
And, this one, which was good, it was well rewarded because $15 million budget spent, $61 million return.
Nice.
So not only was it profitable, it's about 4 times. It's not based on a book, but it became like a cultural kind of icon thing. So there's a graphic novel that was based off of the movie. And then all kinds of merchandise with like little statuettes, pins, masks, etc.
Yeah, until this movie came out, I really didn't hear a lot about Krampus in the cultural, lexicon anywhere. Since this movie, I've seen it a lot more, and maybe it's just because now I'm noticing it. But I think because I know we saw something. Josh Gates did a legendary locations, and there's. One of the Netherlands type countries, I believe, they have a Krampus festival and they all dress up. And if you get 10 scares, you get initiated into the Hall of Fame. So,
yeah. The movie is based on Austro-Bavarian folklore figure Krampus, who is our visiting person. He visits your house.
Well, so does the aunt and the crazy uncle. And
that's right. The family visits as well, yes.
And this is a great Christmas movie. I mean, it's a feel-good movie, just like A Christmas Carol. It's right up those lines.
Well, Michael Dougherty is the guy who wrote and directed it, and he said he wanted the first third of the movie to just be a Christmas movie.
And it was.
Not a horror thing. And he did a very good job of that.
Yeah.
It's identifiable. You can relate to it.
Right. I was kind of joking about the Christmas Carol because it doesn't leave you with a wonderful feeling like that.
No, but he does reference that.
Yes, he absolutely does.
So on December 5th, traditionally, St. Nicholas would come and visit houses, and Krampus would come along with him. And St. Nick would gift good kids with foodstuffs, basically. Put my glasses on. Um, and Krampus would come along with a whole bunch of rods made out of birch called rutin, and he would beat the bad kids with it. So he
So
wasn't. It didn't
really,
start with him taking people to hell.
really, the American version of Santa Claus then it really is the Disneyfied version of the fairy tale.
It
Like,
is.
make it all nice and wholesome.
Yeah. It's the Wizard of Oz if you take the Wicked Witch out of the whole deal.
And the monkeys. And
After 1932, Germany prohibited Krampus traditions because they thought that it was bad. At the fall of the Nazi regime, it was no longer prohibited, but in the 50s, the German government distributed anti Krampus propaganda in an effort to kind of tamp down the popularity of Krampus.
I find that funny. That's hilarious.
Yeah. Krampusnacht is the night that they celebrate Krampus. They still celebrate him around December 5th, and the movie release was supposed to originally be November 25th, but they moved it to 12/4 to coincide with Krampusnacht the next day.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah, it was kind of a clever idea.
Yeah. Not that anybody really knew it. A few people probably, but
Well, yeah, if you happen to be from Germany or Austria, that area. His appearance has changed a little bit over the years, but he's always shown with cloven hooves, horns, and a long tongue. The Krampus that we see in the movie was built off of images from historic documents, like postcards and stuff like that he was on. They basically took a bunch of them, put them together, and were like, ta-da! Here's what we think our Krampus looks like.
I think that's pretty cool because I like some of the old English, Victorian era type Christmas paintings, drawings, advertising,
Yeah,
and all
the
that.
woodcut kind of look.
Exactly, yeah, and I can see that with this. And I'll say I got a note for this later, but the creatures, the costumes, everything that is super fantastic in this movie. I absolutely loved every bit of it, and it looked like it was all practical. I don't know if there was any CGI going on, maybe a little, but it looked practical for the most part.
So the CGI, well, when we get to it, you'll be like, I can't believe that was actually CGI.
Okay.
Because the vast majority of the CGI that happened here had nothing to do with the characters. It was
Okay.
everything else.
Okay. Well, I can see the gingerbread, but like Krampus's outfit and most
Right.
of the elves and the masks they had on, it's pretty fantastic. I loved all of that. It didn't look rubbery hokey, which was
Right.
cool.
Yeah. Krampus typically works alone, or sometimes, in the old days, he would travel around with Saint Nick. They introduced this concept in the movie of having him have little helpers. And that actually did occur sometimes because he was popular in the Alps. You would have small communities that were isolated from each other, and they would have different traditions. And so some of those places he would have helpers, and some of them they would not. But the elves that are in this movie are kind of based off of the Icelandic Yule lads, who are Icelandic Christmas figures, and with names like Bowl Licker and Spoon Licker and Gully Gawk and Sausage Swiper.
They're
And
not the ones that Snow White stayed with.
no, definitely not. So he was kind of merging different obscure ethnic Christmas traditions into this movie when he made it. The vast majority of this movie, 95% of it, was shot on a soundstage. So that means they had to make up a bunch of stuff while they were doing it. The one notable part that was not shot on a soundstage was the opening scene in the department store, and that was actually shot in a department store in New Zealand, of all places. The movie was written by Michael Dougherty with his friends Zach Shields and Todd Casey. And Dougherty wanted to do a Christmas horror film, and he was looking around for concepts and came across the idea of Krampus and just loved it. It was supposed to be rated R, but they couldn't come up with financing because it was a Christmas-based movie. So they agreed to drop it to PG-13, and then Universal greenlit it. So
Wow.
yeah,
And it's
and
still pretty horrific in spots. They do the good old, you know what's happening, but we're not going to show it, which I
yeah,
think is fantastic.
there's actually one of the most controversial scenes that they left in that almost got them an R rating is they're all sitting around with their aunt who spikes the hot chocolate, and an underage kid drinks the hot chocolate. And
Wow,
that is, yeah, that was one of the things that almost put them over the edge.
that's
Never
hilarious.
mind giant clown Jack in the Box monsters swallowing children whole or anything like that. We can't have the kids drinking spiked hot chocolate.
Which never happens.
Yeah. Yeah. So Michael Dougherty likens his movie to A Christmas Carol and It's a Wonderful Life, where you have broken characters who are shown um, the error of their ways through visits from supernatural forces. And
Nice.
I can see that. I can
Yeah,
see the correlation between the two.
yeah, and a little bit of Christmas vacation in there.
Well, yeah, sure. Um, so now the people involved, you have Michael Dougherty, who worked as a writer on 15 films and directed 8 of these. The Hellraiser TV series, X2, the second
Oh,
X-Men movie,
okay.
Superman Returns,
I knew I recognized his name. I didn't look it up, but yeah, okay,
the Trick or Treat titles,
okay,
those horror movies, those are his.
nice.
X-Men Apocalypse, Godzilla King of Monsters, Godzilla vs. Kong. Um, he's even acted in 4 titles uncredited with walk-ons in Superman Returns and Godzilla King of Monsters, and then 2 others that you wouldn't have heard of.
He was the fifth
So,
person squished between Godzilla's toes.
yes, yeah, exactly right. He so holiday horror movies is kind of a thing for him now. Now he's got Halloween and Christmas under his belt. He's working on Trick or Treat 2, which he promises will get a hard R rating, despite whatever financing he can come up with. But with these 2 titles under his belt, I imagine he'll be able to find people willing to give him some money. Adam Scott is in this movie. He plays Tom, the dad. He has been in 123 things. Most people know, yeah, most people know him from Parks and Rec.
Right.
Um, his first acting job was in the Drive video for REM. That was his first gig.
Oh man, I gotta go look that up again.
Uh-huh. He's also been in ER, Boy Meets World, NYPD Blue. He was in Hellraiser, Bloodline, Star Trek First Contact,
Wow.
CSI Miami, Veronica Mars, Law and Order, American Dad, the Beastie Boys Fight for Your Right Revisited documentary. I must have
Wow.
hosted that or something. I don't know. Parks and Rec, Robot Chicken, Drunk History, Hot Tub Time Machine 2, Veep, Wet Hot American Summer 10 years later. I don't know. Did you ever watch Wet Hot American Summer? It's a yeah, it's kind of a spoof of the 80s summer camp musical genre. So they're kind of
That needs
funny.
a spoof?
Kind of. Little Evil, he was in that. That was a pretty good little horror comedy as well. He was also in The Good Place. He plays a bastard in there.
Really?
The 2000, yeah,
Because I think of him, he's always a nerd geek
always a
guy.
nice guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, he's like some major demon in The Good Place.
Oh, that's gonna be worth seeing then.
The Twilight Zone, the 2019 version. Big Little Lies, and he also does voiceover in Big Mouth. So Adam Scott, very well known. Toni Collette plays the mom, Sarah. She's been in 87 films, and some of them are amazing horror films.
I
She
recognize
was
her definitely.
in Sixth Sense.
Oh
She was in
yeah.
yeah, she was in the remake of Shaft, Dinner with Friends, Little Miss Sunshine, The Dead Girl. She was in the 2011 remake of Fright Night. She was in Hitchcock. She was in Triple X, Return of Xander Cage.
Wow, that is a lot of horror.
Yeah. Please Stand By. She was the mom in Heredity, which is an awesome horror film if you get the chance to see that.
She's one of those actresses. I'm like, oh, I recognize that name, and it clicks that I like what she's in usually. but I can't name stuff she's been in. You know, it's just one of those things. She reminds me, or actually, Jessica Chastain reminds me of Toni Collette a lot
Oh,
in their looks and the way their
yeah.
mannerisms are.
She was also in Velvet Buzzsaw, which is kind of a horror movie based on the art industry. And she was in I'm Thinking of Ending Things, which, if you haven't seen that, that's a pretty good surreal little trip. As well as Knives Out. And ironically, she was in a video for Arcane Fire for Money and Love. So I don't know what it is with these people in music videos, but
Well, you know, coming up from the '80s, that was big, you know, thing to be in at the time.
oh yeah. David Koechner plays Howard, the uncle, and put on your running shoes. He's been in 202 movies.
Oof.
Yeah, he's been in everything from The Jamie Foxx Show, Mad About You, Wag the Dog, Love Boat: The Next Wave, Dharma and Greg, Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me, WWE Raw and SmackDown. He's repeated character on Late Night with Conan O'Brien, American Girl, Curb Your Enthusiasm, Anchorman Afternoon Delight, Anchorman The Legend of Ron Burgundy, the 2005 remake of The Dukes of Hazzard, 40-Year-Old Virgin, Thank You for Smoking, Larry the Cable Guy, Health Inspector, Talladega Nights, Barnyard, Reno 911, Snakes on a Plane, Tenacious D, another music-based thing. Um, Jimmy Kimmel Live. He plays this character called T-Bones, who's like a blues musician, which is what he was on Conan O'Brien and Jimmy Kimmel Live. Um, let's see. King of the Hill, Monk, Final Destination 5, Chuck, Kung Fu Panda, Legends of Awesomeness, Beavis and Butthead, Piranha 300, The Office, Phineas and Ferb, Anchorman 2, Chips, the 2017 remake, Twin Peaks, the 2017 remake, Drunk History, The Epic Tales of Captain
Wow.
Underpants,
So,
American Dad, The Goldbergs, and F is for Family.
so he's one of those people that, you know, you could quiz people like, name something else he's been in, because you've probably seen him and you may even
Yep.
go, I recognize him, but
Yeah.
it's never that big blockbuster leading part. But he was great
Right.
in it.
Oh yeah. I don't know that I've seen him in a movie that I was like, man, that was kind of a poor performance by David Koechner.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, you know, he there's something to be said for making a living and doing what you love, but not necessarily being that walk down the red carpet with the paparazzi, you know?
We do have two actors here who are firsts for us. The first is Allison Tolman, and she plays Linda, the aunt, the young aunt. She's been in 42 different things, and she got her start on Barney and Friends. She is the
Wow.
first horror movie actress we have who ever played in Barney and Friends.
Well, that's kind of like back in the day, you know, they first appeared on the Mouseketeers.
Yep.
It was the 90s version.
She's also been in The Mindy Project, Archer, Fargo, the series, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Drunk History, and Castle Rock, and a movie called The Last Shift, which is actually pretty good. MJ Anthony plays Max. He's got 19 credits to his name, including It's Complicated, Grey's Anatomy, The Mentalist, Divergent, Insurgent. He was in the Divergent series, the 2016 version of The Jungle Book, and he is the kid in Incarnate, which is yet another horror film. Here's the other person who's got a first for us, Cochata Farrell. She plays Aunt Dorothy. And when you see her, you know you've seen her and
Yeah.
stuff, right? She's been in 131 things, and her first acting job was in Maud.
Wow.
Yes.
Man.
I'm going to go through the list of stuff that she's in that you'll recognize, and it's going to sound like a Netflix let's reboot shows from the 80s list. She was in Maud, she was in Network, she was in One Day at a Time, she was in The Rockford Files, Good Times, The Love Boat, Knots Landing, BJ and the Bear, Quincy, Cagney and Lacey, St. Elsewhere, American Playhouse, E/R, which was Emergency Room, Matlock, Night Court, Who's the Boss, Mystic Pizza, Murder She Wrote, Edward Scissorhands, L.A. Law, Walker, Texas Ranger, Buffy the Vampire Slayer series, Touched by an Angel, Jag, Aaron Brockovich, K-Pax, ER, as in the one everyone thinks about, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, The Wild Thornberries, Judging Amy, Two and a Half Men, Grace and Frankie, and the Axe Murders of Valeska. She died in 2020.
Oh man.
So she's just passed away last year. But she's one of those people who's been in a lot of things. You know, you've seen her and stuff, and she's actually at one point in time showed up in almost every show that you and I ever watched as a kid.
Yeah, I was gonna say, geez, I've seen everything on that list. It's probably why she looked familiar too, seemed familiar.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. Stephanie Levy Owen played Beth, the sister. The only other thing that I could think of that she was in that you'd recognize if you've seen it, she was in that new show on Netflix, Sweet Tooth.
I haven't seen it yet. It's on the list, but
she gets mentioned because Lolo Owen, who plays her cousin Stevie, is actually her little sister. So the two of them were related. So the big sister and the one cousin were actual sisters. Originally, Dougherty wanted to use the Universal logo from the 1980s. The kind of grainy one that you could tell was, hand animated. But instead, they went with this frozen look, which is how the movie opens, as it like scrolls across and it's all covered in ice and the world's covered in ice. The
which
movie's
gives
actually
you that Christmassy feel, but almost not. It was a really good opening for that.
Yeah. It just makes you cold.
Well, some of us are more used to it. You were just born the wrong time of the year.
Yeah. It's set in Ohio, in Columbus.
Oh, okay.
And there's really nothing in the movie to jump out and say this is Columbus, but there's a radio broadcast that lists Delaware County, Franklin County, and all these other counties that are affected by this blizzard that's hitting, and all of those counties are around Columbus, Ohio.
I totally missed that.
Yeah, it's pretty subtle.
Yeah, cool.
So the movie begins. There's, is it Bing Crosby singing? It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. A great version of it. And it is this department store opening up, and there are shoppers just rushing in, and fights are breaking out between them and other people over toys. The store is beautifully decorated, right?
Yeah.
So you go in and it just looks astonishing, and that contrasts so starkly with like the security guys who are like smiling as they're tasing somebody lying on the floor, and
Right.
the drooling, bored-looking checkout people, and all of the horrible adults sitting there fading.
The beginning here is definitely a political statement when you look at it, because you could take that whole beginning part out and you still have the rest of the story, because it's not directly tied to the story. It's not like reference back. It sets the mood and the tone. I'm watching this going, yeah, he's making a statement that like, this is the spirit of Christmas that's being killed. This is where it's dying. We use this fairy tale character as the epitome of that, but it's this, let's kill everybody so we can get that $50 off the VCR at the mall. Yeah, so there's definitely a political statement for consumerism at the beginning.
There's two actual themes that run throughout the entire movie, and I made notes of them as they popped up through the story. But the first is definitely that the way we treat Christmas now is not how Christmas was meant to be treated.
Right, absolutely.
And this is a perfect example of it. This whole scene is shot, in slow motion, so you get to see all the kind of thing going on.
It is definitely over the top all the way, which is funny because you say it's over the top, but then you hear reports that the exact stuff happens every year.
Yep. So they're sitting there, and there's a scene of a nativity going on, and it's slowly panning in, and you're like, huh. And then you notice that like two of the characters of the nativity are like rolling around on the floor, and parents are like slowly getting up out of the audience to like come rush up and stop this. And there's even some girl standing there smiling, like recording it on her camera. One of the kids in the fight is Max, and the two parents getting up are Tom and Sarah, and the girl recording it is Beth, his sister. So aside from that scuffle and setting the tone, you're right. The scene didn't really need to be there because in the next scene, they're walking into, well, the scene opens with a black and white version of A Christmas Carol playing on the television. And the door opens, and in comes Tom and Sarah and Beth and Max. And Max is still in his reindeer thing, and he's got like a thing of frozen peas on his jaw where the kid punched him. And there's this little old lady in the house making cutout cookies. She's cooking cookies for Christmas.
I think that
They
was my
call
mother.
it's so funny you say that. They call her Omi. But the cookies, this was actually more geared for your sister than your mom because the cookies are Linzer cookies and there's stolen bread up there as well, Stollen, which are staples in Austrian Christmas baked goods. So, like, if your sister saw it, because Steve's sister does cooking,
Yeah.
if she saw it, she might be like, oh, that's traditional Austrian food. The family is of Austrian descent.
Well, we make Linzer cookies almost every year.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think my mom had the same apron too.
But your mom doesn't speak German, does she?
No, but my grandmother did because my grandmother and great grandmother would get into arguments and start yelling. And so we knew what the German swear words were, even if we weren't sure what they meant.
Awesome. Originally, Dougherty was going to make Omi deaf, but instead he decided to make her Germanic. And so throughout the movie, she's always speaking in German. Everyone speaks to her in English, but she always replies in German, and only Tom and Max actually seem to know what she's saying as she speaks.
It's kind of like Charlie Brown and Snoopy.
Yeah, right.
or Luke and R2. Yeah.
The parents are berating Max for fighting at the nativity, and he's defending it because he's like, the shepherd was this bully. He's telling the first graders that Santa wasn't real. And here's where we get to see the contrast of, his theme here. You have two camps in the household. You have Omi and Max, who believe and appreciate Christmas for what it is and what it's always been. Then you have mom, dad, and the sister who are just going about their everyday lives, just wearing Christmas like a coat, like it's a decoration for them.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah, so you have the people who really fully believe in it, and then you have the people who don't. And it turns out Max has even written a letter to Santa, and he needs to finish it before it gets sent. It cuts to Sarah, who's putting up family pictures on the wall, all perfectly aligned. And she's arguing with Beth over the fact that her sister and her sister's family are coming over for Christmas. And like Beth is like, that's why some people shouldn't be allowed to breed. Your words, Mom, not mine. And then she storms off. And Sarah's like, I didn't say that. I said they should have to take a test. And then when she's done saying that, she looks at one of the pictures and she notices that it's a family photo and Santa is like a perv and is like leering at her daughter who's standing to his left. Which, again, is just setting the tone of this is not really what Christmas is supposed to be about. We cut from that horrible scene to Omi and Max, who are wrapping a gift as she's laying out, basically the general brief of the story. And here's the second theme. She's speaking of Saint Nick, because Max asks her if she still believes. And she says the magic of Christmas is there, and it's what you make of it. And as she's saying this, her smile kind of fades away and she seems uneasy. And if you look at the movie as a whole, she's right. The magic of Christmas is there. And when she says it's what you make of it, she doesn't mean you can either have it be a good thing or not. She means you can either make it be a good thing or it can be really bad. The magic of Christmas flows both ways for Omi. We then cut to Beth, who is in her room video chatting with her boyfriend, whose name I don't even remember, about how awful Christmas is going to be. And the whole room starts to shake.
But he's got a candy cane bong. So, I mean, he's in the
does have a
spirit,
candy cane.
especially if
Yes.
he uses it. Then he's probably really in the spirit.
Yes.
All those
And,
cookies look good.
because all teenagers smoke weed, all teenagers, video
It
chat.
it might be legal in his state.
He's in Ohio, remember?
Oh, that's right.
Unless he's got glaucoma, that's not legit.
I'm sure he does.
I'm sure he does. Um, so that's what Beth is doing. The house starts to shake. Tom is in his study pouring alcohol into a coffee mug, and the walls start to shake. Max is sitting at the table, hastily putting the finishing touches on his mug, and Sarah is not his mug. He's putting his finishing touches on his letter, and Sarah is gearing up for getting ready to open the door, because it turns out that rattling is her sister's family arriving in their monster vehicle.
Again, Christmas Vacation reference there.
Yes. She opens the door and she's like, "Merry Christmas," with a smile on her face.
After she takes a really deep breath.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Her sister Linda comes in and explaining how bad the roads are and how miserable the trip was. And then her older son, Howie, or I guess her only son, Howie Jr., comes in, hands her this potato and cheese casserole, which I thought looked awesome.
Yeah, it looked good.
And she's kind of rolling her eyes.
Was it
about
potato
it.
and cheese? I thought it was mac and cheese with hot dogs, because they reference it later and they're eating it.
It could have been.
I think it is.
That sounds pretty good too. I'd be happy with that. In comes her husband, Howard Sr. He's played by David Koechner. He's carrying a whole bunch of gifts, and like Tom's going to offer to help him, and then he drops them and he starts belittling Tom like right away, because Howard is 110% toxic masculinity. That's all he is. Everything's man, man, man.
If you're not into sports and hunting, then you're worthless.
Yes.
And it shows with his daughters.
Correct. He has 2 older daughters who come in. Stephanie, and the other one's name escapes me, but we'll come up with it eventually. Stevie. And then the other one's name escapes me. It's like Jesse, maybe.
Yeah, I forget now too.
But they come in. They're pretty bulky, and they also have an infant that they forget that they leave in the car. So they had to send someone back out. They brought their bulldog, but the most annoying thing is they brought big fat Aunt Dorothy. And that's what finally puts Sarah over the line. She pulls her sister aside and she's like, "What are you doing bringing her here?" And she's like, "She showed up at the door with a suitcase. We didn't know what else to do."
And I love Aunt Dorothy. She has the best lines throughout the whole movie. Everything she says, that's the humor part for me, mostly. Is when Aunt Dorothy opens her mouth and says something, because she's very pragmatic through the whole thing. Just, you know.
At one point in time, Max says something and she's like, "Well, I think the boy should be given a medal for just telling it like it is." Yeah. There's also this little scene where the sisters notice Sam's letter sticking out of his pocket, and they lift it. They're deft about it. Like, he doesn't know it's gone. The film then moves to the dinner table. Everyone's sitting around the dinner table, and now, again,
there was one true horror part that you missed on this, and this is coming from the parent perspective, that they eat some sugary desserts before they eat dinner. I mean, for a parent, that's true horror.
That's true. Yes. They're sitting at the dinner table, and we can see the contrast between the two families. I mean, it's just laid out. One is fake and pretentious and narcissistic, and the other is crude and cruel and toxically masculine. You've got a belching kid and gun talk, and then you have Cornish hens and specially prepared fish. So there's obviously going to be conflict between these two.
And the uncle who's sitting isn't he sitting at the head of no, he's sitting on the side, but he has to pick on Adam Scott's character, because Adam Scott's not a real man because he was an Eagle Scout.
Yes, he was an Eagle Scout.
That one, okay.
Hitting Steve right where he
Yeah,
lives.
right there.
Um,
Which he said is true. We did a lot of wilderness survival.
oh yeah, absolutely. So Sarah ends up basically kind of telling everyone off because the food's too rich, and then she's just like, I'm going to go make dessert. So she gets up to make dessert. The aunt comes into the kitchen, wants to see what's for dessert because all this fancy food goes straight through her pipes, she says, which is actually a reference for something that's going to happen like 2 days later. And she's making creme brulees. While she's doing that, the two sisters start to tease Max about how Santa died in a sleigh crash, but he ate the reindeer first. And so, he's like getting all antsy, wanting to dive over the table and take him out, and his sister keeps calming him down.
Considering how much the sister didn't want the family there, why is she? She should go get them. They deserve it.
So he's getting upset about it. They tease him about still believing in Santa, and he's like, "No, I don't." And then they're like, "Then what's this letter?" Now he's really starting to freak out, and they start to read it out loud. And I think their thought was it was going to be very embarrassing for him, which it was, but it actually turns out to be more embarrassing for them, for everyone else really, because Max is actually asking Santa Claus to bring non-material things, like make his parents love each other again, or help out Uncle Howard and Aunt Linda because they're really struggling, like financially, and help Stevie and Jesse because it's not their fault that Uncle Howard always wanted a guy, always wanted a son, and they get upset by that, and then the fight breaks out. Max tackles his cousins, grabs the letter, and says that he hates Christmas. And then the door opens, and out comes Sarah, creme brulee. Well, we cut to Max's room, and he's been crying, and Tom goes in like the dutiful father, and he says something that becomes another theme in this film, and that's that this is the time of year when we stop and think about family, whether we like them or not.
That's whole, makes you feel good there.
It does, but if you consider, how Stevie and Max get along at the start of the movie, and then you jump all the way to the end, there is this growth of character.
Yes.
In that, regardless of what they thought about each other when things were fine, when the chips are down, they've got each other's back. Max takes his letter to Santa and just tears it up to pieces and throws it out the window. And that's it. That is the final spell for summoning Krampus, because as soon as he does, clouds roll in, the weather gets nasty, and everyone goes to bed. And the first sign you have that something is wrong is in the morning, Max gets up and looks out his window, and there's this giant, creepy snowman in his front yard.
Right. And they've lost electricity by this time, and
Yes.
the screen goes black. I really was waiting for one of those white letters to fade in and say like day 55. I mean, it's like a survival apocalypse. And if this is Ohio, that must have been set in the blizzard of 78. So that's what it seemed like.
Everybody's got their cell phones. Yeah, we don't get snow like that.
Well, that's true.
Not anymore. He goes downstairs to tell his parents about the snowman, and there is no power. There's no phones. The blizzard is raging. Doorbell rings. There's a DHL delivery man. He drops off a package, and Linda's the
one dedicated delivery.
Dedicated, yeah.
Yeah.
Linda's there, signs for the package, and then notices this massive sack of gifts and asks if he brought those. He's like, nope, must be the boys in brown, referring to UPS. So she brings all that in as well. Beth wants to go see her boyfriend, who only lives a couple blocks away, so her mom's like, okay, be back in an hour. And Omi is sitting in the living room with a fire. Sarah tells Max to tell her to get her away from the fire. and he goes over, and here she's got this giant fire going, and she's making hot chocolate, like
Because hot
campfire
chocolate makes
style.
everything better.
Hot chocolate makes everything better.
What it really needs to be ultimate hot chocolate, like me and Megan used to make. A little bit of vanilla, some cinnamon, put some whipped cream on top, sprinkles, a couple extra additions.
It was a little thick, so it actually makes me think it was actual chocolate, kind of
Yes,
hot chocolate, not some sort of brown powder mix.
Right, I believe so.
Yeah. And again, watching this, Price was watching it with me. As soon as Beth goes out the door, he's like, she's dead.
Yeah. What parent's going to let their kid wander a couple blocks in the worst blizzard ever? I was like, okay, that's stretching it there. I can believe Krampus before I believe they let her just wander out into and the dad goes, oh, she'll be fine.
Yeah.
You're the Eagle Scout talking about survival, man.
The holiday part of the movie is now over. We're to the horror movie part.
J.J. Abrams has arrived.
Yes. Beth is walking down the street in this blizzard. Everything is frozen over, and she's looking around. Now, here's where we start to get into your CGI.
Okay. And
Number
before
one,
we talk about CGI, I forgot to mention when he was ripping up the letter is when I first noticed how great the music was throughout this, because it really sets the mood and what fit that scene perfectly. And there's some good music throughout the whole thing and good sound effects, especially when Krampus starts appearing. So whoever was doing that work did fantastic on this movie.
Yeah, the Foley work is very good. The music even has Christmas Carol themes woven into it, which is brilliant. You'll be listening to this setting music, and you're like, "Is that Silent Night?"
Just a slight creepiness to it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So special effects, the fog in her breath, added in post. That's all CGI.
Okay. Oh,
Okay.
they're on studio. Okay. So they're all sweating to death under those costumes.
Yep. Now the fake snow, that was legit. That's diaper filling. That's what they use for all the fake snow. But are you ready for this?
Okay.
The houses are all CGI.
Really? Wow.
Yes. Not only are they CGI, many of them were designed and based off of famous houses from 80s movies.
Oh, I absolutely love that. I mean, to do that little Easter egg, that'll endear a movie to my heart right away.
Yeah. So I thought that was really cool. And it's one of those things, how we talk about how CGI doesn't age well. That's like a perfect use of it.
Yeah.
Because it's such in the background, no one's looking at it.
Right.
So you can get away with if it gets, dated over time, no one's going to notice.
Yeah. And I think that's a perfect choice because, like I said, they did for all the monsters, they did practical costumes and they looked fantastic. They really put some time and money into those and they were great. They were wonderful. If it had been CGI, it would have looked more hokey, especially as time goes by. So yeah, you're right. Those decisions are perfect. It's probably make this movie a classic for years.
Yep. So Beth's walking down the road in the blizzard and everything is frozen. And then she's looking around. She looks up at this house and Krampus lands on the roof of the house. Just this great big horned thing just lands on the roof of the house.
And good crunchy sound effects.
Yes. And Beth screams and starts to run. And Krampus follows, leaping from rooftop to rooftop.
Now, I had to question that. So the boyfriend's only a couple blocks away. So 2-3 blocks. And maybe she's halfway, maybe not. But she keeps running forward away from where her family is. It just seemed, I don't know.
She was actually walking like a 6-block loop so she could smoke a cigarette before she got there. So
in that weather.
She was taking the long route.
Yeah.
She finds the DHL truck and scrapes this frost away, and the driver is inside looking terrified and dead.
Completely frozen.
Yes. So Beth climbs under the van. And she's hiding under the van, and these huge hooves land near the van and walk around it. Get to the front of the van, and then leap away. And you're like, oh, I've never seen a horror movie. It must be okay.
Turn the page.
Yes. So she looks to her right, and there's a Jack in the Box. and the little handle is turning and it's playing music all by itself, which is always a bad scene. And as it finishes, it opens and you see this kind of clown thing start to emerge out, and then it cuts to the roof of the van and it starts to shake and she's screaming, and that is the end of Beth. I could tease it along in the movie because there's several times where Krampus uses Beth's voice to lure people. I'm not going to do that to you. I'm just going to come right out and say it. But Beth's done. She's over.
Far be it from
Max,
us to try and drag things along.
yes, right. Max looks out his window and sees a second snowman. Tom and Sarah are looking out the window and wondering where Beth is, and then Tom asks Howard if he thinks his Hummer will make it through the blizzard, which of course he's like, if I aim this east and hit gas, I won't stop till I hit the beaches at Normandy. And it's like, oh my God, slow down, dude. And then the movie splits into two sections. And for the ease of just verbally narrating, we're just going to do one section and then cut back to the other, because it bounces back and forth. And I like to think of it as kind of like you're out in the cold and then they come back to the living room where you can warm up a little bit, and then they're back out in the cold and then you're back in the living room.
Right.
So the people outside it's going to be Tom and Howard. There's some bonding happening as they're driving down the road. They're talking and they're getting along. They run over this Christmas tree ornament as they're approaching this abandoned snowplow. Keys are in the ignition. There's presents on the seat. Photograph tucked up in the sun visor, but no people.
Where'd
that's
the
when
DHL
they notice,
truck go? Because she didn't see a snowplow.
See, I told you she walked around the long way.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah. The windshield has been punched in. So something came through the windshield from the outside. And, it would actually be hard to tell based on velocity and things like that, but I can see you making that assumption that it's been punched in.
Yeah.
Then they know that the house in front of them, the front door's open. And Howard goes back to the trunk of his Hummer and gets out his gun, which, of course, he's got to have a gun in the trunk of his car. And he pulls out a shotgun for him and hands a handgun to Howard. Hands a handgun to Tom, and Tom's like, "It's heavy," and Howard's like, "Sure it is. It's Linda's."
That was a pretty good line, actually.
Yeah, it was. He's got, not only does he have the shotgun, he's got the shotgun with a flashlight underneath it, just in case you want to go hunting something at night. So they head into the house looking for Beth and her boyfriend, and something's definitely gone on. The house is turned upside down. There's damage to the chimney. There's a gingerbread pinned to the refrigerator with a knife. There's goat hoof prints. And then they hear Beth scream, and they run outside for the scream. And as we've already pointed out, Beth's dead.
Yep.
But they're running out.
Krampus might be related to a Wendigo, because they're mimics and lure people out into the woods by sounding like somebody else.
He's got such a cast of helpers with him. It wouldn't surprise me if he's got, some Icelandic guy that's like voice impersonator who's with him.
Maybe he has that guy Weird Al always had that did the fart noises with his hands.
Could be. So they're running out to see if they can find Beth, and then something in the snow grabs Howard's leg and begins to drag him away.
And I love this because it really looked like a scene from Jaws. It looked like the great white got him under the water and was dragging him along.
Yeah. Tom grabs his hand and goes to pull him out and then lets go. And it looks like Howard's looking at him like, what, you're just letting me go? But he lets go to take the gun and shoot into the snow. Whatever
so the Boy
it was.
Scout knows how to shoot. He was
apparently.
on the range.
Yes.
Later, he flips open that chamber and checks. I mean, he handles it professionally.
He does. However, I'm trying to think of any summer camp I ever went to where we did revolver shooting.
Yeah, no. But,
no, not so much.
Yeah.
22s maybe, but no handgun firing.
Right. Yeah, but, he did that later, let's say.
Yeah. Whatever it was, let's go. and they head back to the Hummer, but it's been destroyed. It's just a smoldering pile.
That
So
was
the
pretty
two of
impressive.
them, yeah, the two of them limp back to the house. Meanwhile, back at the house, the sisters are reminiscing over Christmas past, and then all of a sudden there's noises from the direction of the roof. Sarah's like, it must be squirrels, and then the whole house shakes.
And Aunt Dorothy says, "In this weather, for the
Yeah,
squirrels."
the house shakes, and Sarah doubles down. Yep, see, squirrels. And then, Aunt Dorothy's like playing with their nuts, and Omi, ever wise Omi, like leans into the fireplace and glances up the chimney. They hear Tom's gunshot because they don't live in the sticks like we do, where everybody's shooting all the time.
You're right.
Um, and now Sarah's like upset, so she's getting dressed and she's about to head outside when the guys burst through the door. And they're trying to do this balance between getting safe and prepared and not causing a panic. So they send the kids to the kitchen with Aunt Dorothy, where they can talk. And Tom turns to Omi to say, "Can you go with the kids?" And she says, "Keep the fire hot." And then she heads out into the kitchen.
And the first thing she does in the kitchen is start fingering the butcher knife. Makes you
Yes.
wonder.
In the kitchen, Aunt Dorothy's mixing up spiked hot chocolate, which almost gave the movie a rated R, because Howie Jr. drinks some. Max is actually spying on the adults, and Omi is arming herself with a meat cleaver.
Which is, wonderful.
Yeah, Grandma's got a meat cleaver.
I heard that song.
So the parents are in the living room strategizing, how to look for Beth, how to escape. And Tom suggests boarding up the doors and the windows. Kids are in the doorway listening to the whole thing, and then everyone decides they're going to camp out in the living room, which in a house where we have electric baseboard heat and wood heat, if we lose power, that's what we do. Everybody goes into the living room and we build a big fire in the fireplace, and everyone hangs out there because it's the only warm spot in the house. Howard and Tom share this kind of moment between the two of them. A shepherd's got to protect his flock. I don't know how many freaking times that line is in this movie, but it gets said a lot.
Yeah.
Max points out to Tom that Omi is acting oddly, and the men decide to set watch, and Howard says he'll go first, which, if you're like me, you're like, he is 110% going to sleep,
Right.
which is what he does.
Yeah, I love this because throughout the whole movie, I mean, again, I'm taking it as some political statements that Doherty is making, because here's this tough guy, always talking big, talking tough. He has young Howie drinking a 2-liter of pop to prepare him for a linebacker and stuff.
Yeah.
And I got to protect the flock with my big gun. I'm staying awake first. And he falls asleep. Every step of the way, it's all talk. When it comes down to it, they're the ones panicking the most. They're the ones falling apart, not knowing what to do. It's just all talk, which I applauded, because that's the type of thinking I've had about those types of personalities.
Yeah. The fire has now gone out and everybody's asleep. Silent Night is playing on the kid's tablet, which is a really nice little touch. And then when it turns off, we hear giggling overhead.
Right. Did you see the cartoon the baby was watching? I loved it because it looked like Rudolph, but it was sounding like Charlie Brown Christmas. So
yes,
that was fun.
We didn't want to worry about any copyright infringement.
Exactly.
So this, I loved this part. A chain and a hook lowers down the chimney, and there's a gingerbread man on the chain. And Howie Jr. sees it and heads over to this fishing line, which is exactly what it is.
Yeah.
He grabs the cookie and takes a big bite out of it, and it comes to life and is like, ah! And the kid freaks out and drops it. Then it grabs the chain and wraps it around his legs, and he's getting sucked up into the chimney.
You got to question this child who, something strange is lowering a gingerbread cookie down the chimney. I'll eat it.
So, yes, for sure. However, they have from the moment he walks in the door, kind of established him as an idiot.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
he's a mouth breather. His mouth's always open. You talk to him, he says nothing. He's like Max is like, "Oh, you want to go?" Blah blah blah, and he's just standing there staring at him, and then walks away.
Right.
So, it's there's a stereotype they've built with this character, and
Oh,
they're
yeah.
sticking with it. He's all about food, and he's an idiot.
Yep.
My apologies to all the Howie Juniors out there.
Yeah.
Sarah wakes up, hears the screams, grabs the kid by the legs, and she's trying to pull him down. While she's doing this, she gets kind of pulled into the fireplace. She kicks out a log from the fireplace. It rolls into the Christmas tree, catches the Christmas tree on fire. Tom is helping Sarah try and save little Howie Jr., and he's yelling to Max to get a fire extinguisher to put the Christmas tree out, which he does. And then, shoop, Howie's gone because Sarah loses her grip, and Howard's looking up the chimney, and a shoe comes down and hits him in the face as his son is joining Beth. He is no more.
Sarah starts freaking out because one of the gingerbread come down and like go to her, and so
Yeah,
she's
she
like,
actually
whoa.
saw one of the gingerbread moving. And this causes Omi to launch into the story of Krampus.
Yes.
She says it's the whole family's fault, and she switches to English, and the film goes into this really nicely done animated sequence.
I loved it. It was, gorgeous. It looked like those old tin moving toys in the way the animation was.
Yeah. And she's talking about when she was a child, and people were starving, and they're fighting over bread, and Omi is there as a young girl. She's got the Santa Claus doll, and she gets her bread, and then like all the adults around her knock her down and take her bread and run off. And she's there, and her parents are fighting. And there's a brief glimpse of an advent calendar on the wall, and it is built off of the advent calendar that is used in the movie to show the passage of time. Every time a day goes by, they open the advent calendar. It's the 23rd. So it kind of shows that this is an advent calendar that she brought with her from Austria, kind of thing, which I thought was kind of a neat little detail they had thrown in there.
Definitely.
Her parents tear off the Santa Claus head on her doll and drop it, and she gets mad and throws the doll in the fireplace and changes her Christmas wish from whatever she wanted for Christmas, just wish that they all went away. And Krampus arrives and takes everyone with him, and leaves her behind.
As a warning to everybody else, a reminder.
Well, she's the one who made the wish.
Yeah.
So she said, I knew St. Nicholas wasn't coming this year. Krampus came not to reward, but to punish. And a little Krampus bell is left for her, which she keeps to this day. She's got it with her.
As a reminder. And Aunt Dorothy's comment, or no, that's still coming up here in a second.
Yeah. So she's telling this story, and it's the only time Krampus is ever actually mentioned in the entire movie. Every other time, he's just this monster everyone's running away from. Of course, Howard doesn't believe it. And while she was telling the story, there were Christmas carols being played as the background music, again, very subtly intertwined with what the background music should sound like. It was just really well done.
Yeah. That part
Christmas
alone is worthwhile watching.
Yeah, it would be actually kind of cool to get a hold of the soundtrack and just play it. Over for Christmas.
I'm sure somebody put it up on YouTube.
Oh, I'm sure somewhere. Howard's made up his mind to go out and take whatever this is head on. He doesn't believe that it's a monster or anything, but he's going to go take this thing. So he takes the gun and opens the door, and the 2-3 snowmen has turned into an army of creepy snowmen in the front yard. And there's little figures of something running around in between the things. And they pull him back in, and Sarah shuts the door, and she's like, don't open the door. Being very, very serious, reminding me of the character from Heredity. Um, and then we get this fade to black, and they're opening another Advent day, and I think it's the 24th, maybe.
And at this point, Beth is gone. There's definitely some weirdness going on, but they don't seem a whole lot of upset about it. They're just, okay, let's try and stay together, which always gets me in movies like this because, man, most parents would be freaking out and losing their absolute mind, which I
Yeah.
understand they got to handle what's in front of them too, but it's always that one child totally missing in a blizzard that would be, on their mind. But that would change the story.
Well, as if to illustrate your point, the next day starts with Linda sorting through the Christmas gifts
Yeah.
and trying to figure out which ones need rewrapped.
After the
It's like,
fire.
yeah, after the fire. And hey, here's this football one for Howie Jr. Well, I guess we don't need that one anymore. He's
Yeah.
gone. While she's doing that, the girls are asking Omi what to do about Krampus. And she's answering, and Max is translating, and she gives this answer. And the girls look to Max, and he's like, I don't understand what that means. And this is where Aunt Dorothy says, it means you're fucked.
Because I'm old enough to know when life is coming at you with its pants down.
Yep. That's
That was like my favorite line.
great line. Tom is in the kitchen making plans. Linda finds this Jack in the Box amidst all the other gifts and notices that it's making noise. She kind of shakes it and it's like playing music. She's about to open it when Sarah calls her away. And so here's their big plan. Tom is going to get that snow plow and bring it back to the house. Then they're going to drive to like one of the public shelters around in the snow plow, which honestly isn't a bad plan,
No.
assuming it'll run.
Yeah. He's going to plow the way and they're going to follow the station wagon. And I love it because they have a map and they have it circled and he's drawing lines. I'm like, this plan is not that complicated, but okay.
Yeah. Let's get to Chapel Hill. Okay. I don't need a map.
Right.
I've been
lived
there.
here.
Yeah. In the attic, you have all these gifts that are in the attic and they start to shake and like start to unwrap. Max actually looks outside and sees Krampus. And then Krampus is gone because, this giant hulking thing just vanishes all the time. Stevie and Jordan have gone upstairs to use the bathroom because Aunt Dorothy has apparently destroyed the one downstairs.
And they ask Aunt Dorothy, well, you just let him go? She's like, I didn't realize there was another option.
Yeah. As they're going down the hall, they hear Beth's voice up in the attic. It's calling them upstairs, and they're like, oh, okay, let's go see. Beth's upstairs. Where have you been? And then there's screams from up in the attic. Sarah grabs an axe, and she and Linda and Tom head up the stairs, and there's a noise in the kitchen. Howard takes the shotgun and heads that way.
After
So again,
he tells the dog to go first because he's the big brave man. Send the little dog in first, and the smart dog runs the other way.
yes.
That cracked me up.
So again, you have this this back and forth between the two. So we're just going to actually deal with one at a time. The attic is covered in ice and icicles and everything. Linda finds the gifts and notice they've all been torn open from the inside. Then they note this grotesque Jack in the Box clown kind of monster that is actively swallowing one of the girls.
Yeah.
Tom shoots at it, and then this angel doll monster swoops down and attacks Sarah. This angry teddy bear attacks Linda, and this robot drops onto his back and starts stabbing him with scissors. The angel's actually wrapped Christmas lights around Sarah's neck and is hauling her up so she's strangling with Christmas lights, and Linda's just had it. She grabs this icicle and jabs it through the teddy bear's eye.
With green
Then
goo.
yes. Yeah. She cuts the lights with the axe and hits the robot with the axe, and it goes flying, but she's too late to save Jordan. But they find Stevie.
And this is another example of the great special effects, because all these toy monsters are absolutely frightening looking and scary
Yes.
as all get out. I mean, it was,
And puppet.
yeah.
No CGI there. It's just puppetry.
And it was just, they looked so good and they were so scary. And, you know, there's hanging the mother by the lights and stuff. So it was a really freaky scene, really.
And I think that's one of the things why it works so well is because that's what a Jack in the Box monster would look like. It would look like a demented puppet,
Yeah.
you know? So
Yeah. With its
downstairs, Howard
jaws
goes,
unhinging. I mean,
yeah, yeah, splits apart,
yeah.
kind of like Predator. Yeah. Howard goes into the kitchen and it's trashed. And there's gingerbread men in there, and they have the nail gun, which again we've talked about how this isn't how nail guns work, but you know, for the show, they drill some nails into his leg, and he limps away and pulls a cutting board in front of him, and more nails hit the cutting board. So he takes his gun and shoots this lantern or something, and it explodes.
Slow mo.
Yes, slow mo of these gingerbread men on fire flying away, and they're trying to put the fire out, but of course they can't. They're sticky, delicious, and it's sugary stuff, so they're on fire. So two of them just run at him, still on fire, and he shoots one of them and tries to shoot at the other one and misses, and he just like cringes and waits, and then nothing, and then he hears like this chomping sound, and the dog has come back and is eating the third cookie.
Yeah, that was perfect, because she's wearing like a tutu or something. You know, I mean, she is just this French bulldog, and she's chewing on the cookie. That was great.
Rosie.
After she ran away.
Rosie is her name.
Yeah.
And in probably one of the greatest crimes ever committed in cinema, the gingerbread men were voiced by Seth Green, and he was not credited.
Really? Oh, that's good trivia.
Yeah, uncredited gingerbread man and Krampus. Everyone's downstairs. Rosie is dying to get into the air grates to go after the monsters because the last one she had was delicious. So Max lets her in, and she goes in, and Howard's like, "Go get him!" And all of a sudden, there's this groaning sound, and as what would actually happen, the ductwork falls through the ceiling, and the giant Jack in the Box monster falls through the ceiling. Howard's going to shoot it, but the angel shows up, and the wounded teddy bear. Aunt Dorothy gets a hold of the shotgun and shoots the bear and the angel, and she's about to shoot the Jack in the Box when a horn sounds. You know you're in trouble when the Jack in the Box starts clapping its hands like this.
That was so perfect, because it made it even creepier. That it's not just this mindless monster, that there's this reaction, and you know, I loved that. That was great.
Omi says elves, you know, like it's a curse word. Elves. God damn elves. And they burst through the window. And these are like your Icelandic Yule lads. This is exactly how they're depicted. You have this whole uncanny valley thing going on because they're not quite human sized. They're kind of hunched or shorter. Their faces are masks that don't move. And the people who are playing them are doing everything like twisted angles and contorting and very sharp movements. It's not quite human, just not quite enough to make it really uncomfortable.
It's like they hired Cirque du Soleil, or Soleil, how do you say that?
Cirque du Soleil.
Soleil, there you go.
Yeah. They come busting in and put the fire out. And they corner the family because they're all armed with like chains and hooks and nasty looking weapons.
It's like Hellraiser.
Yes. They chain up Aunt Dorothy, take her and the Jack in the Box and the baby.
And Aunt Dorothy's like, oh, damn.
Yeah. She's like, I'll see you in hell.
Yeah.
The horn sounds again, and they all leave. Tom grabs the gun and reloads, and they decide they're just going to make a run for the snowplow. Omi decides she's going to stay behind, tells Max to be good, and locks the door. Tom at first is like, no, we've got to go through the window and get her. And Max is like, no, she's doing this for us. So Tom's like, okay, see you, Mom. And they head
Not
off.
knowing you.
Yeah, running for the snowplow. Um, and Omi meets Krampus for the second time. The house is actively icing over as he comes down the chimney, and they made the very interesting choice to have him come down the chimney head first.
Yeah.
You always see Santa come, you see his boots come down, and then he's magically in the room. Krampus crawls down the chimney, and you see his claws first, and then his horns.
He almost oozes out. It looks a
Yes,
lot like the Grinch.
yeah, it's the first good look we get of him. He's got this crazy long tongue. He puts this sack down in front of her, and he opens it, and there's all these vicious toy monster things in there, and then it cuts to the family in the snow.
Yeah.
So Omi has made her final sacrifice.
Which really
They
didn't
see
help at
no, it
all.
really didn't.
I think
No.
it was more she was redeeming herself from earlier,
Yep. Yep.
or trying to.
They see the snowplow in the distance and make a run for it. The under snow monster, for lack of a better word, heads towards them, and Tom shoots at it a couple times. Um, oh, I'm sorry. It gets Howard, doesn't it? Yeah, the under snow monster
Yeah.
grabs Howard. Then Tom shoots at it a couple times. He tells them all to run while he stays behind, and it circles him. And while it's circling him, he's firing at it and apparently missing. And then he's out of ammo, and he just closes his eyes and he's gone. We get to the snowplow, and they get Stevie in the snowplow. Linda gets sucked into the snow. Sarah grabs Max and puts him in, and then she gets pulled under, and
Right.
it's
So
Max.
So everybody starts sacrificing themselves to save who's left. And it's almost comical because it's just nothing they're doing is really helping. And
Not at all.
I was thinking if that was like me and you in the situation with our families, you would have had it better off because you had more kids you could sacrifice to,
Oh yeah,
the enemies. But now I've actually got more. So between the two of us, we probably could have made it out.
yeah.
We got enough kids to burn.
Add the dogs in the mix.
Oh God, yeah, a couple cats.
Shoot, we probably got 4 or 5 of us actually in the cab of that truck right now.
Yeah, we could have made it all the way to Cleveland by the time we got through all the people.
Sure. I find it funny because all of a sudden Max, this kid who looks like he might be 12, is supposed to start and drive this truck. Shocker, newsflash, it doesn't start when he tries to turn it over.
Right. And the tough family, Stevie, she's just screaming, start it, start it, start it. Not helpful at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah, not so much. Well, fortunately, he doesn't have to listen to Stevie much because there's an elf at the window and it smashes the glass and pulls her right out. So, he tried to start it. He gets out of the truck, and then Krampus is there in front of him. He grabs a tire iron. That's important. He gets out of the truck with a tire iron, and Krampus is in front of him and drops this thing of paper, or gives this piece of paper to him. And Max looks at it, and it's torn up Santa's note. And inside is Omi's Krampus bell. And then Krampus is gone.
So there
Now,
you go. Torn up or, bad Christmas wishes,
yes,
are definitely the magic spell. We already
yes,
knew that.
and from Krampus's point of view, that's it. Story done. Because that's how it was with Omi. It was like, everyone's gone. Here's your bell, and I'm going to leave you alone now. So that's what should have happened with Max. But Max isn't taking this lying down. He returns to the house, or he's returning towards the house, and he sees all these monsters and elves and Krampus and like these big, weird reindeer, for lack of a better word, pulling this giant wagon thing. It's a real parade of geeks,
Uh,
you know.
yeah.
And they've got Stevie, and so Max yells at him and throws the bell at Krampus and says he takes back his wish. Um, and the bell sinks through the snow, and the earth cracks, and this volcano thing forms, just like this giant hole that leads, it's a pit straight to hell. And the elves are dragging Stevie to the edge, as Max rushes up to Krampus. And he begs him to fix it. He's like, I know you can fix it. And he offers himself in exchange if he'll just bring them all back. And he's got this tear, and Krampus reaches down with one claw and takes his tear and pulls it back. And then starts to, what you can only assume for Krampus, laugh at the boy as they throw Stevie in. Then Krampus grabs Max by the head and holds him over the hole. And Max apologizes. He says, I'm sorry. I just wanted Christmas to be like what it used to be. And then he drops him. And then it fades to white, and Max wakes up in his own bed and falls out of bed. You're like, oh, it was just a bad dream. He heads downstairs, and everything is great. Like, the entire family's here. Everyone's opening gifts. It's
It is a
awesome.
Christmas Carol.
It is. Someone hands him a gift, and he opens it, and it's the Krampus bell. And everybody stops what they're doing and gets this very disturbed look in their eyes. And the camera starts to pan back, and they are trapped. The entire house is trapped in a snow globe, and you see Krampus's claw pull away, and there's shelves full of houses and snow globes. One of them in there is the house from Psycho.
Nice.
And another one that is in there is actually Michael Dougherty's house from when he was growing up.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
And so this Krampus bell is definitely a little more ominous than the one from the Polar Express.
Yes. Yes. It apparently can open, a pit to hell right in your backyard if you throw it. There's a lot of debate about what the ending means.
Okay, I was going to say a couple things on that.
So the common debate is it is one, they are trapped in this thing, forced to relive basically what Max's wish was, is that Christmas would go back to what it was.
Perpetually over and over. So it's like
forever and ever.
That Groundhog's Day thing. And, you think it's great. Well, do it every day. Now you're going to hate it.
Yes.
Yeah, I saw that.
The other debate, the other side of the debate is no, this is actually Christmas Day. The whole thing with the snow globe is that from now on, Krampus is watching the house closely. Between the two, I like they're just stuck in this. They've all been sent to hell, and this is their hell.
Right.
It's Christmas Day for eternity.
Well, I wondered about that one, because that would mean Oma is in two different Christmas snow globes. That she should have been reliving the one from when she was a kid.
Unless you consider this entire thing was all part of her snow globe.
Yes, that's true too. And you mentioned earlier about Oma and Max were the only two that believed in Christmas. Well, they're the only two that caused all these things to happen. So it's almost a statement on, if you believe in Christmas, then you're the reason all these bad things. But these people that didn't believe in it actually had a better Christmas because Krampus didn't visit. Yeah, I mean, there's several things I picked up on that. And I love the fact that they were using the funnies in newspaper to wrap presents, because I do that.
Yeah. Because you're high class, just like Lyndon Howard.
Yep. You know where we live.
Yeah. Mac and cheese and hot dog slices.
Maybe
sounds
some bacon.
good to me. Yeah.
So, all right.
Well, happy holidays, everyone. That's Krampus.
It's definitely, I like to watch the Christmas horror movies between Halloween and Thanksgiving, because it's that transition between horror and Christmas, and it almost extends the Christmas season a bit. There's a couple other pretty good Christmas horror movies out there. Some really bad ones, but a couple good ones. This is definitely worth watching.
Oh, yeah. It's, while a lot of it's over the top, and stereotypical, it's also farcical. So, it was a choice made to reinforce the point.
Yeah.
So it wasn't done because, hey, all high school kids have a boyfriend with a bong. No, it was a choice made to be like, this is like what everyone thinks of as typical, and we're going to take all of that, turn it on its head, and introduce a giant Christmas evil spirit.
Right.
So.
And for anyone that does want to look it up and watch it, make sure you get the right one. You'll probably know it, because if you're like, this sucks, that's probably the wrong one.
If you make it 15 minutes in and beyond, then you've probably got the right one, because the rest of them, really, you can't go much further than
So
that.
bad.
Yeah.
I mean, we've watched a few movies with low budgets, but some of those really must have like $2 budgets.
Yeah. Paramilitary Krampus is just not something that's too
Zombie.
enjoyable.
So, all right, man. So, happy holidays.
Thanks, same to you and yours.
Yeah.
The creature slips from perception. Pay attention. It will rise again.